What's going on, guys? In this video I'm going to show you how to add an image to CoreData and then later reference that image and make it full screen for your user to see. So in order to show you how to do this, what I'm going to use is an app that I've previously made, which is the weight logging app. You can go through my videos on my channel. I've done 2 videos already. They're somewhat outdated as I use the beta version of Xcode 6, but you can follow along on there and build this application, or I'll have a link in the description so you can have access to this app and you can start along with me here instead of having to go through both videos before. The code on my GitHub is up to date up until Xcode 6.0.1 GM. Okay, so that's where I'm at right now. Let me show you the application that I've built so far so we can see what we're going to be doing here. Alright, so this is the basic weight logger app. The user clicks log your weight. It brings them to this screen now. Now we have some sort of preview here, which is for an image that the user is going to select and then attach to that particular weight that they're logging. Okay, so the user can enter their weight just as normal. So we'll enter, say, 150 pounds. Click the screen. So this is 150 pounds. And now let's say we don't want to enter a picture along with this. We can just click Save Your Weight, and then it takes them to this screen with all of their weights logged and the date here. Now if the user clicks on an object here, it takes them to the full screen image of the one that they chose. So in this case we did the 150 pounds. Now if we click it, it takes us to a full screen image of the one that we picked. In this case we didn't pick a photo, so it just shows this blank user. However, if we go back and then we enter another weight, say 200 pounds, then we click this, it brings us to our photo library. We can access all of our photos, and then we'll just say we're this kid right here. Then we click the photo, it brings us a preview of it. Then we can say save your weight. It saves it into CoreData and brings it into our log here. Then we can click this 200 pounds and boom, it shows us our full screen image of the photo that's in CoreData. And we can access all of the other images from this point here. Okay, so that's the goal of this video, is to just set up everything and get the full screen image, the image saved in CoreData so that we can reference it later. Okay, and then this is just a preview of it. And also I want to add a camera button here. You can't use a camera on the simulator, but we'll add a camera button here so that the user can take a photo instead of just browsing their photo library. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so what I have on the right here is the basic weight logger app that you can get from my GitHub page. The first thing that we're going to do is modify our data model. Okay, so if we go to the data model here, we can see, let me actually make this window bigger. So now we have the date, the units, and the weight inside our data model. But we want to save an image. So how are we going to do that? The way that I'm going to go about doing it is saving a reference to our image. So we have an app-specific documents directory, and what I'm going to do is save images that the user either selects from the photo library or takes the picture of. We're going to save those photos into our app-specific documents directory, and then we're going to save a URL to those photos, and that's what's going to be saved inside our CoreData. Okay, so then if we need to get the photo again, we simply have to go to that path and then extract the image from there. Okay, there's no need to actually save the image itself into the CoreData model. We're just going to save a reference to it and then load it when we need it. Okay, so we're going to add an attribute, and I'm going to call it photo full URL, and then the type is going to be a string. Make sure we spell this with 2 L's. So photo full URL. All right, save that, and then let's go to our data model class here, and then we're going to say ns managed variable photo full URL, and this is of type string. Okay, so now we've modified our data model. Now let's go to the storyboard and change this around a little bit. So we want to have, as you saw in the preview, I had a preview image here, so the user, when they selected, there was a toolbar with a photo library and a camera here, and then another view controller here that showed the full-size image. So let's go ahead and make those changes now, and then we'll modify the code. Okay, so let's first add the toolbar. So we click on the navigation controller, and then click on the sidebar here, go to the attributes inspector, click on shows toolbar. Okay, so now we have the toolbar at the bottom. Now let's add those bar button items. So you go down here to bar button item, add one, and then we also need a fixed space bar button item. Extend that over here a little bit, and then add another bar button item for the camera. Okay, now let's change that. Go up here to identifier, click on camera, and then go to this one and click on organize, which is essentially a folder. So that'll take us to the photo library. This will take us to our camera. Okay, now let's just add another, or let's just add a UI image to here. You can make it whatever size you want. All right, so there's the image. Everything is good on here. So let's actually, before we add the other view controller, let's connect these actions and outlets. So let's open up the assistant editor here, close the sidebar. Let's minimize these methods here. Okay, so let's add for this UI image view. Okay, control click and drag to here, and then we're going to do, we'll call it photo preview connect. Okay, so now we have the photo preview outlet. Now let's add an action for both of these. Okay, so we have this one, which is going to be an action, and we'll label this button photo library pressed. Okay, now let's add another action for this camera down here. This is an action, and we'll call it button camera pressed. Okay, so now we have both actions and then an outlet for the photo preview. All right, so we'll handle these in 1 minute. Let's actually create the next view controller, which is going to be the full-size image view controller. Okay, so now let's come over here, go to view controller, and put that on here. And again, I'm making this for specifically for a 5S, but the reason I'm doing that is just to show you how to make these. Feel free to change it around and make it like a more general. I'm simply doing it for a 5S. Okay, so now we have this. Now, the way that we get to this is by clicking one of these cells here. So we can open up the side panel here, click on the weight log table view controller and the cell here. So once they click on one of these cells, that's how we transition to this full screen image, because on here is going to be the weight and the date. So hit control and click from the cell to here, and we're going to do a show seg, which is essentially a push. So we'll end up with this navigation controller bar at the top, which will inherently get the back button here. Okay, so now on this screen, we're actually going to have an image view, which is going to be a full screen image view. So we can fill up the screen, and I'm actually going to push this down right below the battery, just in case if we get rid of this navigation bar, you'll still be able to see the time and the battery and whatnot. Alright, so now we have the image view here, we have the seg. One thing that I'm going to do is actually make an identifier for this seg, and then I'm going to call it show full screen photo. Okay, so there's an identifier for this seg, and the reason I'm doing that is when the user selects one of these cells, we have to pass data from this view controller to this view controller here in order to show the image. Okay, so we're going to intercept the prepare for seg function, access this identifier for the seg, and then transfer data that way. Okay, so before we continue, let's actually create a custom class for this view controller, the full screen view controller. So we come over here, hit Command N, create a new class, and we're going to call this full screen photo, and it's going to inherit from UIImagePickerController. Oops, UIImageViewController. There we go. Okay, next it's a Swift file, create. Okay, so now we have that class. Let's delete this prepare for seg here, minimize these functions, and then let's go back to Storyboard, click on this new view controller, go over here to the identity inspector, and change the class from UIImagePickerController to full screen photo view controller. Okay, so now this class is tied to our full screen photo view controller. And now let's actually go back to Storyboard, go to the assistant editor, and then we have to create an outlet for this image view on the full screen photo view controller. So click and drag to here, and then we can just call this photo full size or something, photo full. That sounds good. So that's the full screen image. Okay. So now that we have that set up, let's go back to the beginning. So everything on Storyboard is done. We created image outlets for all of these. Okay, so we did create an outlet for the image view. We have the buttons and we have the full screen image. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is go and actually create the code for getting the photos from the library and getting it from the picture. Okay, so that's all going to be a UIImagePickerController. So let's go to the EnterWeight viewController class, which is here, and we're going to have to inherit from UIImagePickerController delegate. Okay, and then we also have to inherit from UINavigationController delegate. Both of these are to implement the photo library and the camera. Okay, so now there's actually some methods that we need to implement. So if we go to the UIImagePickerController, there's both of these methods down here. So we can copy both of these. So did finish picking media with info and did cancel. So let's go back. And this is going to be the UIImagePickerController delegate methods. So these are the callbacks when the user selects a photo, essentially, or cancels. Okay, delete this optional, and then let's create this as a function, and create this one as a function. Okay, so this one's really easy to implement. So the ImagePickerController did cancel. Okay, so they brought up the photo library and they hit cancel. So all that we have to do is simply say picker, which is what we were returned, dismiss viewController, and then we'll say true, animate it, and no completion handler. So picker it's essentially a viewController that shows itself, which is the photo library or the camera, and then all we have to do if they press cancel is dismiss that viewController. So that's all we do here. And then we're actually going to be doing the same thing. So I can copy and paste that into the end of this. Oops. Because in both functions you have to it's up to us to dismiss that viewController. Okay, so there's going to be other code here, but for now let's leave it. So the next thing that we can do is implement the photo library pressed. Okay, so when the photo library is pressed, we have to create that picker, the one that we dismissed down here. Okay, so we can create the picker, and this is actually going to be an instance of a UIImagePickerController. PickerController. There we go. We can create an instance of that, and now we can modify the members of it. So we can change the source type. So picker.sourceType is simply going to be .photo library. Okay. I'm doing shortcuts here, but what you can do is simply say UIImagePickerController source type, and then .photo library. It's exactly the same thing, but I'm just doing it short like that. And now you can say picker media types. So the media types that we want are going to be UIImagePickerController, and then only available media types for the source type. Now the source type that we want is a .photo library. Okay, and then we can explicitly unwrap that. So we only want the photo library. That's the media type that we're choosing. And now we can set the delegate is ourself, and then we can set picker.allows editing. We'll set this to false. The reason I'm setting it to false is for simplicity. If you set it to true, then you have to do something with the edited image down here, but you also get the original image. So just be wary about that. I'm leaving this false so that we only have the original image down here on the callback. Okay. So the next thing is going to be to set up to present the viewController. So we can say self.present viewController, and the viewController to present is picker, animated, true, completion, nil. All right. Okay, so we're getting a small error here. The reason being is right here. So we did UI navigation bar delegate. This should be UI navigation controller delegate, not bar delegate. Alright, so now the error is fixed there. So we've presented viewController, which will present the photo library, and then these callback functions will handle it. This is almost exactly the same thing that we're going to have to do for the camera, so I'm going to copy that, come down here. The only difference is we want to make sure that the whatever hardware they're on has a camera. So on the simulator it doesn't have a camera. Okay, so we want to make sure first if a camera is available. Okay, so we're going to check if UIImagePickerController is source type available, and the source type that we want to worry about is the camera. Okay, so if that is available, then we create the picker. Okay, so the picker is this. Now instead of .photo library, it's .camera. We don't care about the media types. The delegate itself allows editing is false, and this is present the viewController. Okay, otherwise there's no camera available. So what I'm going to do here is actually just create an alert to show an error that there's no camera available. Okay, so we can create an alert, which equals create an instance of UIImagePickerController with the title. And the title we can name it, say, error. The message we can say there is no camera available. The style is going to be an alert instead of an action sheet. Now we want to add an action to this. So alert.addAction, where an action is simply just like a button. So we want to add a UI alert action, and then we want to add it with a title. The title is going to be OK, so the name of the button essentially is going to say OK. The alert action style, we're just going to use the default style, and then the handler. So this is where we handle when the user presses that button. Okay. So the handler actually takes in some arguments. Alert action. Okay, so now inside here, when the user selects OK, all we have to do is dismiss the alert. So alert.dismiss viewController true, completion nil. All right. And this is for that. So we need one more. There we go. Okay, so if there is a camera available, then we'll set up the picker. Otherwise, we'll show an alert. Okay, so now we actually have to handle when the user selects a photo. So what we can do is come down here to did finish picking media with info, which is the callback. And in here is where we actually extract the image from this dictionary info here. We can extract the original image, and this is how we're going to be saving the photo to our documents directory. So this is where the meat of this whole video is coming into play. Okay, so we're going to get the photo, and then we're going to save it into our documents directory, and then we're going to take that path of that document to the photo in the documents directory and save that to our CoreData. Okay, so we're actually, since this is a callback, we're going to create a local variable or a class variable here, and we're going to call it photo full URL. So exactly the same as we have in our CoreData, and this is going to be of type string. Okay, so this is going to hold simply the path to our photo in the documents directory. Okay, so let's come down here again to the did finish picking media with info, and let's extract the image that they return. Okay, so we can say let image, which again is going to be a UI image. This is going to be info, and then this is a dictionary. So the key that we want to use is UI image picker, UI image picker controller original image. Okay, so we want to extract the original image. Okay, so that's the full size image, and then actually we want to cast this back as a UI image. Okay, so now we have the full size image there, and now we could actually take this full size image, save it to our documents directory, and do everything we need to. However, for efficiency's sake and for memory purposes, it's best to scale this photo down. Okay, the reason I'm saying this is that most cameras now, at least the iPhone 6, the iPhone 5, both have 8 megapixel cameras. Okay, so both of those 8 megapixel cameras are about 3,000 to 2,500 pixels for the image. So that's how many pixels this image is going to be. Okay. However, the viewpoint of those phones are only about I think I have it on here. Yeah, for the iPhone 5, it's 320 by 568 pixels. Okay, so there's no need to have that huge image and save that huge image. You can scale it down to 320 by 568, which is the highest quality viewpoint for the phone, and save that. It'll be much faster than saving 3 times the size that we need. Okay, so we have this image, but what we're going to do now is actually scale it down and then save that into our documents directory instead of saving the full size image. Okay, so let's actually create a method to scale the photo. Okay, so that's what we can do. So we'll create a method here, scale the photos. We'll create a function and we'll call it scaled image from scaled image with image. Okay, and then we'll take in an image, which is going to be a UI image, and then we'll take in we can take in the size of it, and that's going to be a CG size. Okay, and then we'll return back a UI image. Okay, so the user can pass us an image and a size that they want. So now inside here, we can create another variable, new image, which is our scaled image, and we can say this is, which is a UI image, it's going to be scaled image with image. The image that we're going to pass is this full size image, and then the size that we want is a CG size. We can create it with a float, and then like I said, the highest size for the iPhone 5 or 5S is 320 by 568. So we can write 320 by 568. So we get the highest quality photo for our phone without having any memory problems. So in order to make your code more versatile, whether you're using an iPhone 4S or iPhone 5S, we can dynamically get the screen size instead of being stuck on one CG size here. So what we can do is create a new variable, screen size. And this is going to be of type CG size, and we can set this equal to UI screen dot main screen dot bounds dot size, and this will dynamically get whatever hardware device you're on, the size of that screen. And then down here for the size, you can simply say CG size with the screen size dot width, and then the screen size dot height. And as you'll see on the GitHub with all this code, this is the way that I have it implemented. Alright, so back to the video. So this will scale the image. Okay, so let's actually implement this method down here. Okay, so this method, first we have to take the scale into account. Okay, so you don't want the image distorted at all. Okay, so we can create a variable scale, which is actually going to be a float. So CG float, Core Graphics float, and we're going to use this inline function max. The x is going to be the width, the size that they pass in, the width of the size that they pass in over the size of the image width. Okay, so we're going to say size dot width divided by image dot size dot width. Okay, and then the y is going to be the same thing, but it's going to be for the height divided by image dot size dot height. Okay, and then we can create a new width, which is a CG float, and this equals image dot size dot width times the scale. Okay, and then just like that, we can create a height, which is again is a CG float. This equals image dot size dot height times the scale. Okay, And now we can create an image rect, which is a core graphics rectangle, which is going to be the size of the photo that we want. Okay, so create image rect, which is going to be a CG rect equals, and then we'll use CG rect make, the inline function. The x-axis is going to be basically the average, so size, the size dot width minus the width divided by 2.0, I guess you could, to be precise. And then this one for the height is going to be size dot height minus the height divided by 2.0. The width here is just simply the width, and this is the height. All right, so now we can create a graphics image context. Okay, we can use a method called UIGraphics begin image context, and the image context with the size that we want to use. Well, actually, no, not this one. Begin image context with options. There we go. So now the size that we want is the size that we just created, or the size that they passed in. Opaque, we can do false, and then scale 0. Okay, so we start a graphics image context. Now we can tell the old image to draw in this new context of the desired size. So we can say image dot draw in rect, and this is going to be the image rect. Okay. Now we can get a new image from the context. So the new image, which is a UI image, equals UI graphics get image from current image context. All right. So now we have the new image. Now we can end the context, the image context. So UI graphics end image context. Now all we have to do is return the new image. There we go. All right, so that's how we can scale the photo. So now back up here, we have a scaled photo that's 320 by 568, and now we can handle this the way we want. So now we're actually getting into how can we save this into CoreData. Okay. Okay, so now that we have this new image, we can actually set the photo preview, right? So we can say self.photo preview.image equals this new image. Okay, so now we've set the preview, and now what we can do is actually save this photo into the documents directory. Okay, so how do we get this documents directory? First, we have to get the path to the documents directory. Okay, so to get the path, we can say let paths, which is going to be an NS array, equals NS search path directory for directories in domain. The domain is going to be dot document directory, and then the search path domain mask is going to be dot user domain mask expanded tilde true. All right, so that's the paths. Now to get the documents directory path, it's simply the 0th element of this array. So we can say let documents directory. So the documents directory, which is going to be a string, equals the paths dot object at index 0. Okay, and then we'll cast this back as an NS string. There we go. So now we have the path to the documents directory, and now it's all about saving the image. But we don't have a name for the photo. Okay, so what we can do, well, actually, one thing that you can think about is how can we have, because we're saving multiple images to one directory, how can we have unique names for these photos? The way that I thought about it, and you can feel free to change this, I thought to use the current date and time. Okay, so we'll just save that as the name for the photo. Okay, so unless you're saving a photo at the same second or choosing a photo at the same second, we won't have overlapping names. Okay, so here's the way I'm going to implement it. So we're going to use a date format, which is going to be an instance of an NSDate formatter. Okay, and then we can say date format dot date format equals. Now we write our format of the date. So we want the year, we want the month, we want the day, then we want the hour, we want the minute, and we want the second. Okay, so that's the format that I want for my date format. Now let's create the date. So I'm going to create the date for right now, which is going to be an NS date. And this equals NS date. Instantiate this with time interval since now 0. So get the current date and time. And now let's create the date as a string. So let the date, which is going to be a string, equals date format dot string from date, and the date is now. Okay, so now we actually have the date in this format for the current time period, and that's what I'm going to use as my prefix for the file for the image. Okay, so now to actually set the URL, we have enough information now to make the URL for our photo, so we can actually fill this photo full URL string here, our local one. Okay, so let me just write a few comments. So we can say set the URL for the full screen image. Okay, so in order to do that, we can say self.photo full URL equals, we're going to create a string, and this is going to be from format. That's good. So the format of our string is simply going to be slash percent at dot png, and then the argument is simply going to be the date. There we go. So the format of the way I'm saving things is at the documents directory, one level below that, and then it's going to be the date.png. That's the name of the image that I'm saving. So they select an image, and I'm saving it as the current date and time that they selected it, .png. Okay, it's being saved in my documents directory. Okay, so now we can save the full screen image. Okay, so now to save the full screen image, we have to actually create the full path with the photo URL, the full URL for the photo. So we can say path for the full photo, which is going to be an NS string, equals, and this is going to be documents directory dot string by appending string. Now the string that we're going to be appending is the one that we just created, self.photo full URL. Okay, so now we have documents directory slash our photo name. Okay, now we can save the data, or we can save the image, but you don't want to just save an image. You want to convert that image into PNG data. Then you save that. You save the data. Then when we want to get the image back, we take the data, convert it back into a UI image, and display it. Okay, so let's convert our UI image into PNG data. So we can say let PNG for the full size image data, which is going to be NS data. This equals UI image PNG representation of the image, which is new image. Okay, so now we have full representation. Now I'll just save it. So PNG full data dot write to file path with options. Actually, no, not with options. So we'll just do this, and the path is going to be path for the full photo, atomically true. Okay, so now we've wrote the photo to our documents directory. It's saved in there as the current date and time .png, and then we dismiss the viewController. All right, so that's all that we needed to do. So it's saved in our documents directory. Now we need to save it into our CoreData. So we have the URL, which is going to be inside here, self.photo URL. We need to save that portion into CoreData. Okay, so now where does that get saved? That actually gets saved when the user presses the save button. Okay, let me minimize all these methods here. So the button save pressed. Okay, so inside here, right before we save the context, because we fetched our CoreData objects, and now we have to simply add the URL to this new weight that we're adding. Okay, so what we can do is create a comment and just say save the reference to photo, i.e. the URL, to CoreData. So one thing that we need to do first is we need some way to differentiate between two different photos, right? So we can have, the way that I did this was using a basic image. So let me go onto the internet real quick and just go to, so let me pull this up here. If we go to Google and then we just search no user photo PNG. So this is the photo that I downloaded. So I googled no user photo PNG. This photo is actually from MySpace. If I just view this image and then save the image, just save it on my desktop. Sure. So I saved this on my desktop. This is the photo that I'm going to use if the user doesn't select one. Okay, so we're just going to click and drag this photo into here. So we'll put it under supporting files. I can probably just minimize this. Copy the items if needed. Finish. And then I'm actually going to rename this no_photo.png. Okay. So we have this no_photo.png, which is this guy. So this is what I'm going to display if the user say they don't want to take a picture, or they don't want to log their picture right now. This will be displayed in place of just a blank screen. Okay. So let's go back to enter your way viewController. And now what we can check is, okay, if this photo full URL is nil, so if we haven't assigned anything into it, then we assign this no photo PNG the file path of that, and we store that into our core data and not the full URL, because there's nothing in there right now. Okay, so what we can do is check first if self.photo URL equals nil. So if that is, there's nothing in there, if it's nil, then we can create a URL. So the URL for this local photo, instantiate NS URL by file URL with path right here. And then the path is simply no underscore photo dot PNG. Okay, and then the URL is actually going to be dot absolute string, and then explicitly unwrap that. Okay, and now what I'm actually going to do is take this no photo PNG. Actually, we can leave it there for now. So this no photo PNG references this. You could create another global variable. Actually, yeah, I will. So I'm just going to say let local or no photo PNG equal, oops, it's going to be this. There we go. So that we can just reference this one image. So this is going to be no photo PNG. Okay, so no photo PNG, which is this guy. So we're going to set that dot absolute string, which is going to give us, which is going to turn the NS URL into a string. So this is actually going to be of type NS string. So we have a string to the URL to this photo here. Oops. Now we can simply assign that. So we can say new weight dot photo full URL equals URL. Okay. So now we've assigned the full URL to the photo full URL in there. So when we go to bring up the photo, we'll bring up just this no photo.png instead of the one that they chose. Okay, so otherwise, new weight dot photo URL equals self.photo full URL. Otherwise, it equals the URL that we've saved from the image picker collector or image picker controller delegate method. Okay. Now we can save everything. And now right when we finish saving, we want to reset the self.photo URL to nil. Okay, so right when we get to, right when we open this, right when this viewController is instantiated, everything should be set to nil. So we can actually just create a method that resets everything, and we'll just call it reset parameters. So once we finish saving, we'll say reset parameters. and then we can just create that method down here at the bottom. Reset all local parameters or something. Okay, so this is going to be a function. Reset parameters. Doesn't take anything. It doesn't return anything. It simply resets everything. So self.photo full URL equals nil. Txt weight dot text. So we want the text box to be nothing in it. And then we also want the image to be the no photo URL. So self.photo preview dot image equals UI image, and then we'll construct that with named, and then the name of it is going to be no photo PNG. Okay, so that constructs an image from this no photo PNG. Okay, so that'll be the default image. Okay, so there's our reset parameters method. So we can call reset parameters right from here. And then we also want to call reset parameters right when view did load. So right when this view is loaded, we can call reset parameters. Okay, and instead of doing this in view will appear, we can just get rid of this from here. Okay, so we can save that. All right, so now we have all the parameters are reset, and that should be good. So let's actually test this out. So let's run this code real quick. Shoot, let me stop it. Run it on 5S. Here, run it. Okay, so here's the app running. So log your weight. Okay, so we have this default picture here. The user can enter their weight here, 23. Click on the camera. Okay, nothing happens on the camera, so we must have made a mistake. Camera pressed. Okay, we forgot to actually tell the camera to start. So we have to present the viewController just like we do up here. Or present the alert, I mean. So self.present viewController. The viewController to present is alert, true, and then nil. Okay, save that. Let's quit this and rerun it. Okay, so now log your weight. If we click this, okay, so now we get the alert. There's no camera available. Okay, now we can enter in something, 112, and then we can click this. Takes us to our photo library. If we do this, and then we can scroll. We'll say we're this kid. Okay, so the picture shows up here, which is a preview. If we click save our weight, I'm not sure what's going to happen yet. Actually, it'll save it to CoreData, so we don't want to do that yet. What we can do is just end this and we'll continue. So everything's working fine now. The photo's being previewed in there. It's time to move on now. Okay, so now let's go to the weight log table of viewController, and we'll start modifying code inside here. Okay, so we've finished up with this method now. So everything is being saved in CoreData. Okay, so now everything gets deleted in here and can be viewed here. So we need to modify this function or this viewController to display the data. Okay, so we can go to the weight log table viewController, and now we're not actually going to be modifying how the data is displayed. We're just going to be modifying like transitions. Okay, and then we also need to modify when things are deleted. So if something's deleted from that table view, we also need to delete the photo from our documents directory. Okay, so let's actually implement that first. So let's go to when the user presses the clear button. Okay, so when the user presses that clear button, we fetch all, when they press the clear log, so everything. We fetch the CoreData So when the user presses that clear log button, we fetch the CoreData objects, and then we go through one by one and delete each one by one. So before we delete the object, we need to go into that object, get the URL, and then delete the photo via the path. Okay, so we can actually modify this. Actually, let's change this from any object into a user weights, because that is what type of class it is. So user weights in results, and then we can change this to an array of user weights. There we go, that'll be better. I'm missing an as here. Results as an array of user weights. All right, so now we have each weight entry, which is every entry into the table. Now let's actually get, let's first compare, well actually we have to, first thing we have to do is get the path to the documents directory. So the same thing that we did before. So I can actually go back to here, enter your weight viewController, scroll down to div finish picking media with info, which is here. And then we can simply take these two methods from here, these two lines. Weight log table viewController, insert that here. Okay, so here's the path to the documents directory. So we have the path to the documents directory now. Now we can just delete the object or the photo from the documents directory using what's known as an NS file manager. So this is going to be extremely simple using this. So we can say let file manager, which is going to be a type NS file manager, equals an NS file manager dot default manager. So we access the shared resource, and then we can say file manager dot remove item at path. Okay, so then the path that we want to remove it is at documents directory dot string by appending string. Okay, so string by appending string. The error, we're going to say nil for now. So now the string by appending string, the string that we're appending is actually the URL that's saved in the CoreData object. Okay, so we can simply access that by saying weight entry dot photo full URL. So that is the URL, append it to the documents directory, and that's the photo that we need to delete. Okay? Now the only thing is, you don't actually remove the photo from the documents directory if it's the user, if it's the no photo.png. Okay, so what we can do first is actually include all of this inside of an if block and say if, well actually first we need to get the path to that no photo directory. So no photo URL, no photo URL is equivalent to or equals ns URL file with path, and then the path is going to be the no photo PNG. We say dot absolute string explicitly unwrap. So there's the no photo URL as a string, and then we can say if weight entry dot photo full URL if it's not equal to no photo URL, then we can do this. Otherwise, there's nothing to delete, right? So as long as this photo is not that one, which is as long as it's not this no photo.png, then remove it. Otherwise, don't do anything. All right, so now that's almost exactly the same syntax that we need to use for deleting just one. Well, it is actually the same syntax. Instead of doing this in a loop, we just delete one. Okay, so now they save the object. So now we can come down to where we delete just one object, which is commit editing style, which is down here. So let me move this up a little. So here's the object that's being deleted. So right before we delete the object, we perform the exact same function. And then we can actually remove this and just make it its own method. We can take this out and make it one method and just call that method from here. Feel free to do that. Okay, so the only thing that we need to change here is there's no weight entry. Okay, so in this case it's going to be results of index path dot row dot photo full URL. Okay, and then the same thing is going to be for here. Results of index path dot row. And that should be the only thing that needs to be changed. Okay, so now that we've handled deletion, now we have to handle transferring data from this view controller to the full screen photo view controller. So we actually have to implement a few class variables here in order to display the photo. Okay, so we have just this outlet to the photo, to the actual photo, but we need variables inside here to collect the data. So we can create a few variables, and we'll say this is the photo full URL. This is type string, and then we can create the date, and then we can create the weight string. Okay, so we have all three variables here, and now we can pass this data to or from the weight log table view controller. So in order to pass everything, we actually have to implement the prepare for seg function. Okay, so come back in here, and we can just do it at the bottom here. So we can say prepare for seg, and it should implement it for you here. Okay, so now here comes the reason why we implemented this right here, the identifier for this. So show full screen photo. Let's just come back here and copy that initial identifier, go back to your weight log table view controller, and that's what we're going to use to differentiate, because this prepare for seg gets called anytime a seg is going to occur. So we want to make sure that this code inside here only executes when this is transitioning from the weight log table view controller to the full screen photo view controller. Okay, so let's first do an if the seg dot identifier is equivalent to this, the show full screen photo, which is that identifier that we created, then let's pass the data to that view. Okay, so first we need to get the controller, which is actually the next view controller. So this is going to be of type full screen photo view controller, the name of the class that I created, equals seg dot destination view controller, and this is going to be casted as a full screen photo view controller. Okay, so there's that controller. I can use that to manipulate the data. Now let's get the index path for the object that the user selected. So they selected one of those cells. We have to figure out which one they selected. Okay, so let the index path, which is the ns index path, equals self.tableView dot index path for cell, and then the path for cell is simply going to be the sender, and this is going to be as UI table view cell. Okay, so the sender is going to be the cell that called this function. Okay, and then we can simply extract the index from that. Okay, and now explicitly unwrap that. Okay, so now we have to fetch the data from CoreData. Okay, so we know what we want to, we know what cell it was. Now we simply have to fetch the data. Okay, now knowing what cell it was how we can get the index into our results from, as you can see here. So this results array is going to be the index into that. So we can pretty much copy this right here, fetching the data from CoreData. Copy that. So we have, and we'll make these let. So let app delegate equal that. So this fetches our entity, which is user weight, and now we actually get a results array, which contains all of the objects in our CoreData. Okay, so now we can get the data for selected cell. So the data for the selected cell, so user data, which is of type user weights, equals results of index path dot row casted as user weights. Okay, so now it's as simple as, well, now we can pass the data to the next view controller. Now to pass the data, all we have to do is say controller dot photo full URL, which references these variables in here, equals the user data dot photo full URL. And the same goes for all the other data. So we have the weight equals user data dot weight, and the controller dot date equals user data dot date. All right, and that's all we need to do. So all the data is being passed to that function only when that seg is happening. Okay. All right, so now we have all the methods inside this weight log table view controller complete. Now we can simply implement the methods inside here. So we pass all the data to here. Now all that we have to do is simply go to the documents directory, load that photo, and then put it on the screen. Okay, so we can do that all in view did load or view will appear. I'm going to do it in view will appear. View will appear. Okay, so now our code goes inside here. So this is the same thing that we've done before. Okay, so we can actually go back to weight log table view controller, come down to where we deleted everything, or actually where we did clear log. So this is actually better. So we can copy and paste all of this right here. Okay, so copy, go back to here, view will appear, paste that. So this gets the photo URL of the no photo. Then we want to compare self.photo full URL. As long as this photo full URL is not the URL of this photo, the blank one, then we go fetch it. Otherwise, if it's not that, then we set the image self.photo full image equals UI image named no photo PNG. Okay, so if we can't fetch it, or if the URL is not if the photo URL is not the no photo.png, then set the image that they have saved. Otherwise, set it to the no photo.png. Okay, so now we fetched the documents directory. Now we have to get the path. Okay, so let path, which is a string, equal the documents directory dot string by appending string. The string that we're going to be appending is self.photo full URL. Okay, so now that's the path to the photo, and now we want to actually, from that data, we want to make it a photo. Okay, so we have just data at that location of the path. Okay, so now we need to take that NS data and make it a UI image. So we can do that simply by saying self.photo full, which is an image, .image equals, we can create a UI image and create that from data, or actually from contents of file. Here we go, from contents of file, and the path is simply path. Okay, so that will reconstruct the photo for us. All right, so that should be everything that we need to do there. Let's test it out. Okay, so let's actually, before I do this, I'm going to, because I've had it running, I'm going to remove it from here. Since we're using CoreData, things can get messed up. So I'm going to reinstall it. All right, so let's try it out. Here's the app. Click on log your weight. All right, so now let's just enter a weight. We'll just say 250 pounds. And then we'll just say save your weight with no photo. Save your weight. All right, now we'll click this. All right, so there's one problem. The seg's not actually working. It's not firing correctly. The weight's being saved here. Let's see if this works. If we do a picture, add a picture, we'll say these mountains, sure. Okay, so the photo's coming up, save your weight. Okay, so everything's being saved correctly. See if we delete things. Okay, so everything else is working fine. Let's see why that seg is not firing correctly. One thing we may have to modify, I might have made a mistake in the storyboard, but we can also implement a did select row at index path in this table view delegate. Did select row at index path, which is right here. So copy that, come back here, and we'll implement that right before prepare for seg. So we can say override this function. So it did select row at index path. So when the user selects a particular row, this method will be called. So what we can say is self dot perform seg with identifier, and then the identifier is going to be this. So we're explicitly telling it to perform the seg. You shouldn't have to do this. The seg on Storyboard should work. I'm not sure why it's not. Okay, and the sender is going to be table view dot cell table view dot cell for row at index path, and then the index path that it was passed in. Alright, so now this will force the seg to happen. One thing that I see happening is this is causing a seg to happen, and then the seg on Storyboard is fired, so we'll actually get 2 segs, but this may work. And then, so let's go in there into Storyboard, or into the simulator. We'll run this. Okay, so log your weight. Let's say we enter in 654. Let's attach a photo. So we'll attach this right here. Save your weight. Alright, so it's being saved. Now if we click it, alright, so there's the full screen image. So it's working correctly. Alright, now we have the navigation bar to go back, enter your weight. We can enter in something else, 4, 5, 6, no picture. We'll enter in something else, 1, 2, 3, 4. Save another photo. And we'll pick the dog, save your weight. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the dog, full screen image. Okay, nothing. And there's that. All right, so there's the basic weight logger app with photo functionality and adding those photos to CoreData, just using references. In the next video, what I'm going to do is actually add thumbnail images to this view here and increase performance of this. If you try running this on your phone right now, most likely it's going to be really slow, especially when you go to take this image from the photo library to put it here. So the next video is going to be about customizing the table view cells here, adding a thumbnail image, and increasing performance. Alright, so I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one.